Hi there, and welcome to today's vlog. Quite a number of years ago now, I heard a story, and I'm not sure whether it's a real story or a story made up to illustrate a point, but it went something like this. Someone went to visit I think it was a missionary who lived on a very remote and very poor island, ministered there. And this person came from the West. He was reasonably affluent, and when he got to this particular place where this missionary was ministering, uh, the missionary showed him to the very rudimentary uh, accommodation that was had been prepared for the visitor, and the missionary said this to him: "Well, here's your accommodation. If there's anything that you need, let me know, and I'll show you how to do without it." And I think that's quite a thought-provoking little story, because there are so many aspects of our life in the West, in the richer countries of the world, so many elements of our life, so many things, if you like, that we take for granted, that many people in the world today don't even dream of having. And sometimes we come to rely on these things. Let me tell you about a book I've just read. It's a quite remarkable book. It was written by a lady called Chrissy Chapman, and it's called The Night the Angels Came. I would really thoroughly recommend that book. It's such an inspiring book of this ordinary woman whose life was really dramatically turned around, and she ended up in the country of Burundi, and she spent many, many years there, and she sought to live out her Christian faith and saw God move in amazing and miraculous ways. She devoted herself to sharing God's love, particularly with the children, the babies who've been abandoned. She was caught up in the terrible conflict that took place in that country, in that part of Africa, and yet saw God's miraculous deliverance both in her own life and in the lives of those around her. It's a truly inspiring book. But the particular passage I want to share with you is one that I think teases out what we're thinking about today. She, as part of her ministry, gave food and support to those who were desperately in need, and particularly she would feed very young children. And on one occasion, she's talking about how the children would stand in line with a cup, and they were given this thing called a bouillie, I think it is, which is a kind of porridge to give them nourishment and help them to get through the day. One morning, she writes, we went through our usual routine of handing out the cups of a bouillie to the children. When we came to the end of the line, we started clearing up, and I discovered a little bit of food left in the bottom of one of the bins. That is the bins, not the rubbish bins, but the bins that they prepared the food in. I started looking around and saw a very old man sitting cross-legged in the dirt. I felt there was something about him. He was holding an empty cup and seemed to be praying. My friend and I went to sit with him to find out his story. As my local language wasn't very good, my friend helped to interpret for me. The old man, stooped with age and suffering, proceeded to tell us his story. He said he was 84 years of age and had walked from an area up in the mountains, about 20 kilometres away. It had taken him over 5 days to reach the camp. He tearfully told us his wife and all his 5 children and their families had been killed in the conflict, and his house had been destroyed. He had somehow miraculously escaped. He had lost everything. All he had were the clothes on his back. I went and scraped the bottom of the bin to give him a cup of a bouillie. As I handed this to him, and this is the remarkable thing, he looked at me and said, "Madam Missionary, I never realized that Jesus was all I needed until Jesus was all I had." Despite everything he'd suffered, all the loss of his family, his home, his hope, his focus was in Jesus. Jesus was all he had, and Jesus was all he needed. Psalm 23, that most loved of all psalms, begins with these famous words: "The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need." And that's a real challenge to us, isn't it? When we rely so much on everything around us, everything we've become used to. And sometimes these things, not bad in themselves, prevent us from seeing and recognizing that all we really need is Jesus. And we need to lean on him, to trust in him, to focus our lives on him. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening today.